Bridgerton happened and I had a TikTok for like lurking on TikTok, but the first time I made content was because I was obsessed with Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear writing a musical in front of our eyes with Bridgerton the musical. It blew my mind. And I was like, oh my God, I have so much energy. I have to make content about this. Like I just have to do this.
Right.
So I made a TikTok account, had about 40,000 followers in the span of a couple of weeks, suddenly had this audience of a like micro nano influencer, and started making content and talked about what Broadway would look like when we come back.
Hey there, design enthusiast. Welcome to Inside the Design Studio, the podcast where we unravel threads of life and design. I'm your host, David Peck, your guide through the cosmic wonders, the tangible touches, and the delightful twists of creating a life you absolutely love. Today's episode is a special peek into my eclectic toolbox, the secret weapons I use to design a life that's as vibrant as my creations. So grab your metaphorical sketchpad and let's dive into the art of intentional living. My guest today is Katharine Quinn, a director, producer, and creative brand strategist who is completely obsessed with musical theater and dedicated to sharing that love with the world. She's worked directly on Broadway as a creative strategist and marketer on shows like The Great Gatsby, Maybe Happy Ending, Shucked, How to Dance in Ohio, Tootsie, and regionally at the Old Globe in San Diego on Ride. She's also the CEO and founder of And That's Showbiz, where she helped shape the future of theater marketing. Beyond Broadway, Katharine is passionate about educating and creating transparency in the theater industry, using her social channels, speaking engagements, and panels to demystify the business for artists and audiences alike. And I am so excited to dive into Katharine's story. So welcome to the Design Studio, Katharine. So Katharine, thank you so much for being here. Just so we kind of back up to the very, very beginning, you're a Texan as well.
I am.
Yeah, so a little bit further north of here, but
yes. Yeah. Howdy.
Yeah, so what did you study in school, like in high school? What did you think you were going to go to school for? And like, did you have an idea at that point, or did it all kind of happen organically?
I love this question because it gives me an opportunity to talk about the school that I went to that I loved so much. I went to a school called Hockaday, which is an all-girls school in Dallas, and I was there from 7th to 12th grade. And did I think that I would pursue theater? No. But did I fall madly in love with theater there? Absolutely. And would I have the career that I have right now without that education and those particular teachers? Absolutely not. It was such an exceptional experience. My class had 107 girls in it total. And I remember I was obsessed with film scores, and I thought I wanted to be a conductor. And so I told the head of the fine arts department, I was like, I'm really, really interested in conducting, and I'm a pianist. And I was like, what do I do to, pursue this or study further? And one day after a dance rehearsal, he presented me with a baton and offered to just, mentor me in conducting once a week after, dance rehearsal or whatever. And I got to conduct my high school orchestra. I told the dance company that I wanted to choreograph, and I got to, they let me put haze in the orchestra pit and have people coming out of the traps and do like this whole production number. I downloaded a bootleg of the workshop of Legally Blonde and did, oh my God, you guys, before it was on Broadway, and they yes-anded me into oblivion. I got to direct musicals. I directed the last 5 years when I was 16. What business does a 16-year-old have directing the last 5 years? They don't. So
you were
anyway,
an old soul.
I was an old soul and a product of divorce, which, I guess helps in that situation, but still really had no business touching that show. The next year I did The Sound of Music with 40 people, 40 students. It was crazy. But so obsessed, did choir, played piano, all of the things, danced. But it didn't occur to me that I could pursue theater as a career because I was a chorus kid, and I was dance captain my junior year of the High School Musical. And I was like, oh, I don't know what this means, but I'm honored. And I took it so seriously. So my mom is a teacher. My dad was financial planner / in the Navy. So performing was just not, I'm not a Nepo baby, and I'm not like, I have no relationship to people who performed for a living. And because I wasn't the lead, it just didn't occur to me that I could be a dance captain swing or a writer or work in marketing or any of the things. So I got an arts administration fellowship at a small school in Memphis, Tennessee called Rhodes College. I went there for a year. I'm grateful for the experience. It was not the right fit for me. That summer, I did a community theater production of Damn Yankees. If you've seen Damn Yankees, you know the ensemble women in that show are there for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And I was like, I am changing my life. I am ready to pursue the stage. And my mother was just like, what? What are you doing? And I auditioned for BFA programs and got into SMU in Dallas, Texas, where I'm from, and smushed my BFA in 2 years and graduated with a BFA that was split emphasis in directing and playwriting, and also performed the entire time I was in college in the Dallas area, much to the chagrin of the program that I was in. And then somebody that you didn't ask for all this context, but we can connect the dots to New York, I guess. A choreographer that I had worked with in Dallas offered me a 3-theater dinner theater tour. While I was on dinner theater tour, I drove overnight to my first out-of-town audition in Los Angeles. We auditioned for a chorus line, and also on an absolute whim, I auditioned for Tokyo Disneyland. I booked it. I lived in Japan for a year. That connected me to Disney Cruise Line. I did Disney Cruise Line for a year, and then I moved to New York City.
That's so cool. And just so people know, Katharine has a vlog about your whole audition experience and moving to Disney in Tokyo. That was really fascinating. So if that is interesting, please go check it out.
Well, thank you.
So you had this like performing career, but then somehow like you have gone through a little transformation, many iterations, which I think people who are like, you're very ambitious, I can tell, and also driven to just accomplish all the things. You can wear all the hats. And I think it seems like your brain works that way. So how did you start getting from being a performer to working behind the scenes in Broadway?
I mean, first of all, thank you. That's very generous. There are so many things I can't do. Math, for instance, I'm directionally challenged. And also I have no design skills that you clearly possess whatsoever. None. So thank you. But there are limits. Okay, now I've sort of forgotten your question because I was like, well, that's,
Well, no, I think it's true because I feel like I have like a little bit of a parasocial relationship of having watched you in all your vlogs. And like, so just so you know, I discovered you during the pandemic because of Bridgerton the musical.
Oh my, you're early. That was when I started making content.
It was. And so so our whole office was obsessed with Bridgerton the musical. And so somehow you popped up on my feed and I was like, this person's really smart. Like, I really like how she's analyzing this and kind of like breaking it down. And so I just continued. I followed you on Instagram. I'm like not even a TikTok person. So I'm the millennial that like watches everything through Instagram.
2 weeks later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I loved watching all of your conversations and then ended up on your YouTube page and then watching everything and like just seeing. So I feel like I've watched your career and your business grow, which is really cool because I feel like there's so many parts of your story. I'm like, yes. And that is exactly what happens when you're starting a business. That's what happens when you're trying to manage people. That's what happens when you're trying to do something different. It's really, so if anybody's interested in the art of building a business, your vlog, especially, I feel is just so good. It's almost like, I know you like delay it a month, but a real time snapshot of what it's like to bootstrap something and get it off the ground. So the question was, how did you get from that, and maybe Bridgerton was sort of a bridge to it, the performing aspect of theater, to working, because you worked as a writing assistant and behind the scenes on Broadway first?
Yes. Okay. So I was a performer, but my degree was in directing. 8 years into performing, I was like, okay, I got to be in Newsies, and that to me was like zenith peak. I got to be in Mamma Mia. I unabashedly, unironically love Mamma Mia. And that summer was at the time of my life, loved it. And I was like, if I'm getting bored doing this, I think it's about time to hang up the dance shoes. Like, we're about ready to move into the next thing. So reached out to a bunch of places where I dance captained. I got to direct and choreograph a bunch of places, people just blindly letting me, where I dance captained, and they gave me a little more responsibility and let me lead shows, which is incredible. Felt like I was getting momentum, worked on Hercules in the Park, I feel so bad telling you this, David, because if you've been following, you know. And then
But the listeners don't know. So
that's true, they don't.
Yeah.
That's true. I did a choreography fellowship on Tootsie in 2018, I think. Maybe 2019, but I think 2018. I genuinely can't remember. Met Robert Horn, who was the book writer on that, workshopped a scene during tech, which is a generous way of saying Robert asked for my opinion. I offered more than my opinion, as I am wont to do. He was very generous, listened, applied many of my notes that had no business offering, although to be fair, he asked. They went into the show that night and I was like, oh my God, this is the most powerful thing ever, because historically as a director, I feel like I'm working around sometimes plot holes in writing, and I was sitting with the writer of the musical who had the power to change the script every single night, and we changed the final scene. It was just absolutely amazing. So I was like, that guy, I want to work with him sometime in the future. Plus, he's just hilarious, Tony Award winner, incredible. Anyway, pandemic happened. So it felt like I was starting to get some like momentum in New York as a director and choreographer. Pandemic happened, got my master's in arts administration online, kind of on a whim. Absolutely loved it. University of Kentucky, College of Fine Arts, online master's. Highly recommend. They let me really, really split my emphasis between commercial theater and nonprofit theater, which are two very different beasts, but like work hand in hand. Genuinely learned so much and really loved that experience. And Bridgerton happened, and I had a TikTok for like lurking on TikTok, but the first time I made content was because I was obsessed with Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear writing a musical in front of our eyes with Bridgerton the musical. It blew my mind. And I was like, oh my God, I have so much energy. I have to make content about this. Like I just have to do this.
Right.
So I made a TikTok account, had about 40,000 followers in the span of a couple of weeks, suddenly had this audience of a like micro nano influencer, and started making content and talked about what Broadway would look like when we come back. My ex-girlfriend and I, who my ex-girlfriend was is a producer. She's still present, just no longer my partner. We would just talk about the industry and what it would look like when it returned. Then it did return. I kept making TikToks. I reached out to Robert Horn, who I'd met on Tootsie, and he was attached to Hercules, which I'd worked on when it was at the Public. And I messaged him about that. And I said, hey, P.S., if you ever need a writing assistant, let me know. A week later, he messaged. He said, hey, what's your number? Gave me a call. Have you ever been a writer's assistant? I said, no. He said, do you know Final Draft software? I lied. And I said, yes. He said, I'm a little neurotic. I write 60 new pages a night. If you're game, it's going to be a whirlwind, but I've got a reading of a new musical called Shucked at the Daryl Roth. Do you want to do this? I boarded my dog. I said, yes. I learned the software in a week. And then I was his writing assistant on that, and then did the out of town at Pioneer Theater. And then it went to Broadway, where I was a writing associate. And then I also was a writing associate for How to Dance in Ohio. My writing associate meant something very different for those two shows, but learned so much with each of those. Continued making content. During Shucked, my content was performing really well. My content about Shucked was performing well. And somebody almost every single night of previews without fail would come up to me and say, hey, I'm at Shucked because I follow you on TikTok, or I'm at Shucked because, I'm following your content, which was a crazy thing for me to hear, and an even crazier thing for the creative team, especially because that was 2022, I think.
Feels like it.
Yeah. It was just like
it feels like a lifetime ago. But
it feels like an absolute lifetime. Maybe it was 2023. I guess it was 2 years ago. It was just a crazy thing for them to hear. And our music supervisor took note and also followed me on social media and was like, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. And took me, which is very generous, took me to lunch that summer and said, hey, I've written an adaptation of Great Gatsby. I want you to do on Gatsby what you did on Shucked. I will pay you out of my own pocket and get general management and producers to sign off on it and give you a title to just get you in the room, and you'll market the show, which through many twists and turns is what happened. And we had about 75,000 followers exiting Paper Mill, and Paper Mill's accounts got 10,000 followers. And it was just like a wild, wonderful experience. And then I thought I would consult on Broadway, which is what I pitched. I was like, yeah, I'll hand it off to a big fancy Broadway agency and they're welcome for all of the followers and it'll be great. And then I was offered the Broadway account, and everyone, including our pal Sweaty Oracle, was like, this is going to last a week. Like, they will be lucky to make it 30 days, which of course, the second somebody says something like that, I'm like, you want to bet? But, we had no idea. We were definitely the dark horse. And so I was like, this is, I don't know if I want to pursue marketing long-term, but like, it can't hurt to try this. It can't hurt to try. And what am I going to do? Say no to this opportunity? Plus I am enamored of that team. And it was just a blast. So I said yes. And here we are a year later, because Paper Mill is now a year and almost a half ago, which is crazy. And then I did a Kennedy Center show marketing, and this has all been social media marketing. It started as just organic social and influencers. We now also do partnerships, and this year we're also adding in paid, plus building some of our own content. So we did a Hip Hop Nutcracker on tour, Spells of the Sea at the Kennedy Center. I associate directed a show in the midst of all of this and also did social media for that in the spring of last year. And a couple of other projects. And then Maybe Happy Ending happened this fall, and here we are. So now I'm running a marketing agency. Who knew?
I know. What you have accomplished in a year is really remarkable. But it's also one of those things that, like, if you're good at what you do and people recognize it and you're kind of an overachiever, you're gonna say yes. I think it's that whole, like, the yes and thing in theater.
For sure.
Like, I'm going to do it and then, like, make it better. And I've loved watching that. So let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of Broadway marketing and social media and all that, because I think from what I've heard you say is that your big issue with Broadway, if you will, is that it has a brand problem. And that it's not connecting. And part of the reason why Broadway has struggled, especially since the pandemic, is that it's not connecting to audiences. And one of your tenets, I think, is you have to build the audience before the show is on stage. Otherwise, you've lost people. It's too expensive. Everything is just too much to try catch up when you're in previews or when the show is opened. So can you talk a bit about, like, how your philosophy different itself from what has traditionally been done on Broadway? And also, I think the organic social of it all is something that Broadway has not really attempted in a big way like you have done.
Do you need additional work? Are you interested in working for my company? Because, like, that was so beautifully articulated.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, keep being an artist, and you don't need to be a part of, well, I don't know if you would qualify yours as a startup, but you don't need to be a part of.
It feels like a startup every day. Let me just tell you, like, I don't even look at it as a designer anymore.
I'm sure.
It's very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. It's amazing. That tracks, though, because your background is like heaven. It's so, I don't know what any of these things are over your right shoulder, and I want to know.
It's jewelry I've designed.
It's amazing.
Thank you. But I have my Playbill from Angels in America that Beth Malone had come, and she got the whole cast to sign it for me. And then I do have Tony's on the wall because eventually I do want to win one. So,
Make it happen.
Yeah.
I manifest that for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I've done it again. Your question was, how's
Broadway
my
marketing.
philosophy? Yeah. That's a very small question. Broadway has a brand problem because there is so much churn on Broadway, because most businesses, most brands on Broadway are not successful, the individual brands within Broadway. So when I say Broadway has a brand problem, I'm actually not talking about the individual IP on Broadway. So I'm not talking about, Phantom has a brand problem and Wicked has a brand problem. It's like the entity that is Broadway has a brand problem. We are relying on a 30-year-old notion of what Broadway was and thinking that younger people perceive Broadway the way that they did 30 years ago, which is not the case. We discount younger audiences in terms of numbers and also how we might reach them. We over rely on traditional media, which is important, but not as important as it used to be. And I think that's a very caustic thing to say, strangely. So my perception is we need to be digital first. All of our first interactions with a brand are on our phone. I haven't had a cable subscription I've never had a cable subscription as an adult. I've never had cable. I've only done streaming. And yet producers are very particular about still a New York Times full page ad about TV spots, which again are important and will become less important over time because our generation does not consume media the way that people did even 10 years ago. It's changed so much. It used to take 6 interactions with a brand for it to become recognizable. It is now 22 because of how much we are constantly inundated with different media. The only way that we can reach that critical mass is through our phones, which everyone spends hours and hours on every single day, for better or worse. In terms of organic media, it's really interesting. I'm also sort of processing some of this in real time, and I have to be diplomatic for job security reasons.
Yeah.
And because it's the proper and nice and adult thing to do. I think there's so okay. There are so many agencies, usually. There are so many agencies working on shows, which is a beautiful thing and also very expensive for a show and allows different people to have different specialties. So there's, press, organic social, paid social. Sometimes influencers are separate. Sometimes partnerships are separate. And partnerships, which I started doing last year, is very mysterious. Partnerships you would think are just brand partnerships. So Gatsby is planning a bunch of brand partnerships right now with, spoiler, the Empire State Building. So exciting. But also, I'm in charge now of group sales, of street teams, like our little Chicago girlies with the fedoras. Conferences, like I just went to the American Bus Association conference as a
I
part
saw
of
that. It looked
partnerships.
incredible.
It was wild. It was wild. It was actually kind of amazing. But like, that's not, I mean, I guess it's partnerships, but it's kind of just, partnerships is like the repository for, we don't know what to do with that. So now
Yeah.
it's partnerships, which is fine because it's a lot of things I find really, really interesting, but it's just like sort of a catch-all. In the same way that partnerships, I think, has become a catch-all, organic social is like, there isn't that much thoughtfulness about structure and rethinking structure because no one has the capacity. We're all burnt out. We're exhausted. These shows are not thriving for the most part. They are running for a very brief period of time. In order for agencies to meet overhead, they are constantly pitching, looking to the next show. They're not that incentivized for a show to run because there's going to be another client. And it's just like the nature of the beast. I just feel like there are several problems holding hands right now that are like reparable, but they require a big mental shift for the industry overall. And when you're making change, that means more work up front, even though it will build better solutions in the long run. And folks are already tired, so they are reticent to change. And also, when you tell people that we need to change, it implies that what they're doing is wrong, and people do not like being told that. And I absolutely understand already. I don't remember his last name, but Andrew Paterno, something along those lines, is a newer content creator, or at least newer to me, who recently did Trisha Paytas's show, did something with the social media on that. It's so funny because the way that people treated me, even just a year and a half ago, of like, oh gosh, you can't say that. Like, oh, those are nice ideas, but like in execution, you can't really do all of that. 1 year in, I'm already catching my little, like, I don't know what it is. I think some of it's ego, and then I think some of it is what I have experienced over the past year of like, there's practical reasons why that cannot happen. Mm-hmm. Watching somebody who is exactly as excited and is at least as, and probably more, intelligent and forward thinking than I was a year ago, and I'm already. So anyway, it's such an antiquated system that I love dearly. And it's not for anyone's lack of trying or laziness, truly, because we're all working so hard, so fast. It's just not as efficient as it could be.
Yeah. So, I mean, that leads me into this question about like, there are probably many misconceptions about, what you do in terms of creating content, because it's not just showing up at the theater and filming people doing trendy TikTok dances. There's the planning, the strategy, like all of that, and also getting clearances, and you're dealing with unions and like the layers. There's bureaucracy. It's a behemoth.
Very
Broadway.
dense.
So what do you think is like one of the most common misconceptions people have about what you need to do your job?
That I can just show up to the theater and capture content and make a video go viral, or that I can join a project after the ball has gotten rolling, which is to say audiences have already started.
Yeah.
Or it's on sale that day and I can create a viral strategy immediately.
Yeah.
This is not the way it works. Yeah, there are 13 people on my payroll. Some of us are full-time, many of us are contractors, but there are at least 3 of us dedicated full-time to each brand that I represent. Full-time meaning at least, at minimum, like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, plus often evenings and weekends. And I don't think that there is any understanding, even from folks within our own shows, that fully understand. Yeah, we post twice a day, which PS is like exceptionally outside of the realm of the norm in terms of frequency for a Broadway brand. But there is so much beyond that. Like next week, we have 3 maybe happy events in a row. Next Wednesday, I think it's okay. Because each agency is so exhausted working on so many shows, and even one show is a full-time job for multiple people. Who is running the large-scale creative marketing campaigns for each show? So, like, we are running a fan event that is happening at maybe Happy Ending. Activations begin at 9 a.m. in the morning and they go until 10 p.m. that night. And it is literally like almost every hour we have a different something. It's a YouTube live, an Instagram live, merch on the seats, costume contest going in, hold Waboon and take a photo in front of a press and step and repeat down there. And just to get these items done, it's like we need approval from the Schuberts for the theater to make sure it happens, from company management, from general management. We have invited influencers. We have to, it's like a wedding seating chart of where is each influencer going. Speaking with Micah, who is our incredible ticket strategist of, okay, was this even possible? And okay, $64 tickets because it's Party Like 64 at 2064, and 2064 is the year that it takes place. And like, in order to make a digital lottery, like how many tickets are going to be available via digital lottery, and how can we prove that losing whatever revenue we would make sense to the producers for like the cost benefit of like, okay, we get the capture, which means that we also need photo people, but there's multiple activations throughout the day. So I think we need 2 photo people and probably just film people at the night. And for union reasons, we have to be out of the theater at 9:45, lights out, which means that all of our activations have to be done hard out at 9:30, which means that the photo has to take place at 9:25 and the song has to take place at 9:20, which means that it's like the number of things for that single day. And we're doing 3. We have a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday just for Maybe Happy. This last week, like we had team members at Gatsby last night for audience rewards at Broadway Con Talkback. Last weekend, I was in Philadelphia for the bus conference with The Great Gatsby. I mean, it is constant. So when I don't know if it's social's job to create these large scale marketing campaigns, but we are. So when people are like, well, why didn't you post the photo that you took of us sooner? I'm like, girl, you have no idea. Like our Sprout calendar is filled for months, and you're going to be fussy that this photo, it took, and listen, I love everyone and I love the actors and everyone is incredible and working hard. And there's so much that I don't know about, all the things that they're dealing with, but it's exhausting. It's awesome and it's exhausting. But I think one of my questions is like, whose job is it to have those big, because it feels like advertising agencies, I see creative presented in traditional ads, like static ads and TV ads. But in terms of like a big initiative or campaign or creative activation, I don't think people have the space, the capacity, maybe the budget. So that is, something that we are taking on. And as such, it's like, respectfully, we need some budget for that. And we need, I need to supply, I will make magic, but we, need to fund the human beings that it's taking to ideate and execute and approve and all the things.
Yeah, it's taking it from sort of a traditional advertising mode to very much of an immersive, almost Disney-like experience where you're getting people to engage from a very instinctual level, not just, an early
user experience.
It's user experience. And so that takes so much work to build that world and to coordinate all the pieces. And if Broadway doesn't have that in place, that's a really hard thing to kind of build a scaffold into an already existing structure that makes sense. What do you think? I mean, besides the logistics of all of the scheduling and everything, is there something that's particularly challenging about the ephemeral nature of theater that is hard to translate on social? Or do you think it kind of lends itself really naturally because it is so theatrical?
The latter. I love it because it's it's a world that we just get to play in and we get to expand out. We're a fan fiction. We are creating fan culture and fan names. And one of the fan activations next week is we're doing an Instagram live with Waboon, which if folks don't know, I'm working on a show called Maybe Happy Ending. Waboon is a potted plant that is not active in any way, shape, or form. It's not a puppet, whatever. He's just a plant. And we will have an Instagram live for 30 minutes of him getting ready for the show. But we're going to have our stage manager come in and give some notes to Waboon. We're going to have our Claire actor come in and really give Waboon a pep talk and are they nice and warm before the show? So yeah, I mean, I think the beautiful thing about the internet is we have the opportunity to share the Broadway experience beyond the 4 walls of the theater.
Yeah, that's so fun. I love that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about how you're handling all of this crazy, because I could talk to you forever about the whole idea of marketing. And I'm fascinated by marketing, and also it's exhausting as a small business owner because I know how much we should be posting and I know how much we should be doing. And the logistics of actually getting it done is, I mean, overwhelming. It takes a village, more than a village.
Yeah.
So how are you handling, and what I love about the vlog that you do is that you talk very openly and honestly about your workload and your burnout. It's real, but also on the other side, building systems. And I feel like that's so entrepreneurial. And it's not only entrepreneurial, but it's an entrepreneur who's looking at long-term health and longevity, which is not always the case. I think people who are sometimes very creative exist in the creative world and they don't see a way out of their own head to create a system that allows them to be more creative. And one of the things you said in today's vlog was like, you finally feel like you've created a system where maybe you have some space to be creative again. And I thought that was such a wonderful moment, because it's like, it is the systems that allow you the space to continue to be creative. And also you talk very openly about being autistic and having ADHD, all the things. So all of these things layered on top of each other create such a dynamic, ever-changing, huge presence in your life. How have you gone about breaking it down and making it more manageable? Big question.
It is a big question. And also, you just speak so beautifully and you're so intuitive and lovely. And I feel so seen, which is just a magical gift. So thank you. How do I manage it? Was that the question?
Yeah. How do you break because you've got these moving parts and pieces. How do you start to break that down so that you can create a system or a space where I know that there were many moments where you were on the edge of burnout and breakdown, but you've been able to kind of bring yourself back? What are some like little things that you have done and then that maybe have led to bigger changes in how you view your work that have made it more healthy?
You're coming at me at such an interesting time. This happened at such an interesting time. It's like, that's funny that I said that in that vlog, which I have not watched back since I edited it. And like 2 days ago, I had a wonderful team member decide that this business is not the right fit for them and they're departing in 3 weeks. And I'm suddenly in this like hiring mode where I'm like, oh my God, I have to teach somebody new. Like we're such a small team. So every shift, I mean, that's building a business.
I will tell you, I have done that so many times.
Ugh.
I wish I could tell you it ends at some point. It doesn't. But I will say every time you do it, it gets better. You view it with a different lens and you find what you were missing the first time that made it not work.
Thank you.
And it does get better. I promise you it gets better. It just doesn't end. Sorry. Spoiler alert.
Oh, I just need people to stick around forever. We're building something beautiful. But like, oh my gosh, when your resources are spent onboarding and searching for new people, it's just like, especially as a small team, it's
onboarding is
tough.
huge.
Oh, it's so tough. Okay. How do I manage it? Systems. How do I think about it? Okay. Well, let's start with 2020 and the fact that we were all faced with our mortality in a very real way. And I just promised myself that I would not get upset about theater anymore. Yeah. I was like, this is so unimportant. Like, it's important, but it's just not important. So I just remember like I was choreographing as we were coming out, and things that would have fussed me of like, I choreographed a whole number and they're like, cool, you have to reverse this whole thing. Or like, oh, suddenly you have a roadblock through that entrance and nobody can come through upstage left. And I would just be like, that would send me into orbit pre-pandemic. And post-pandemic, I was like, no problem. We're going to make it work because it's just not a big deal. The reason that I find like I am a snowbird, I'm a millennial snowbird. This is my 4th year down in Florida. I'm currently in Florida. I am traveling back to the city at least once a week, which is exhausting and was not the plan, but work is happening. But it's still worth it because, first of all, I hate winter. Second of all, I'm able to negotiate a great deal on an Airbnb. There's tons down here. Highly recommend. Third, I can't be in Manhattan working on Broadway for 12 months out of the year. Your world becomes this big. And you think that all of those things that I'm able to step away, I lose all perspective. Everything feels over important. Everything feels like the end of the world. I take everything personally because Manhattan's just like a tiny little island. Like the theater district is an itty bitty little microcosm of, and when I'm here, it's like, I don't know if I have 30 minutes before 5 p.m. today, but even if it's at 5, I will go outside and I will literally touch grass. I will go sit outside with my dog, which if I were in New York City, it's like, I don't know, 8 degrees there right now.
Yeah.
So I have to get away. Also, I just read Bob Iger's book, or just listened to Bob Iger's book.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. It's like one that I'll need to re-listen, I think. But he talked about, he was like, if you don't travel, if you don't get out of your own way, if you don't go have varied experiences, if you're just in an office, you will not be a good creative, nor a good leader. And I think I talk about this a lot, but trying to figure out how I model, I don't know, whatever it is that I want to model within my company, within this business that I'm leading. Because I don't want the perception to be, oh, Katharine's chilling at the pool every day. That's not good. And also not true.
Right.
But I also am building these systems so that I can continue to be creative, so that I don't burn out, so that I take care of myself, but also so that I can take care of my team and then hopefully like affect change on Broadway.
Yeah.
But we just have to take care of ourselves,
Yeah. I think travel for me is one of those things that it's a must. I'm also part of a CEO mastermind of like, we have 6 people, and like twice a year we meet not in our home cities and kind of just like have 3 days where we kind of brainstorm, and it's so regenerative. Like it really, really helps. Like, and I mean, I lived in Paris for almost 5 years. So I loved watching you go to Paris. You actually went to my friend's cafe, Le Peloton. I was like, I know that. I sent it to them. I was like, look who's there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So travel for me is one of those things that it takes you out of your bubble and it helps you get a little perspective. It may be really stressful to actually get the travel done, but I can't imagine not making it a priority because it's just too much,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. You wear a lot of different hats. Obviously, we've talked about what you're doing on Broadway, but you also, in addition to all this, because you didn't have enough to do, you subsidize a lot of what you're doing as a startup by doing voiceover. And you also have an Airbnb. So part of that feels like I understand, because I like to have my hands in lots of different things because I would get bored if I weren't. But what keeps it? Does that feel that way? You like the variety, or does it feel overwhelming, or both?
Both, but mostly both. I think it gives me comfort that if I ever am like, I've had enough of this theater business, that I have other forms of income. But I started doing voiceovers 10 years ago. So it preceded my proper theatrical and certainly my Broadway career. And then the Airbnb was a pandemic project, and it's an asset. It's a diversifying streams of income, which is something I've always, always, always felt is just vital.
Yeah.
I'm investing is definitely a special interest of mine. I love personal finance. Not always very good at it, but I find it very fascinating. So it is stressful. It's overwhelming. I don't have time for either of them. I just hired a new assistant, which hopefully is going to really help in that universe. But I'm grateful to have them. And I get to go, Fiverr is one of the platforms that I work for. And I'm going to like an event and meeting the CEO in a week and a half. And that's like a random, cool, fun opportunity from another part of my life.
It's so cool. I love it. I love that you have those different things, because I think most creative people get so focused on it's easy to become hyper focused, which is great. It means that you're probably excellent at what you do. But when that thing goes away or fades, like in the pandemic when theaters were shut, what are you going to do,
to sustain yourself?
To sustain yourself. And I think a true creative person is looking at that holistically all the time. And I shouldn't say a true creative, a healthy creative person.
Yeah.
Is doing that, because it can be so hard. AI is such a I just did a podcast episode with somebody who is on an education task force about AI. Has it infiltrated what you do, and do you use it, and how do you use it? And what do you see as being sort of the ethical dilemmas of using it, especially when you're dealing with people who perform and, that make their livelihood from having their likeness. Nobody wants to have their image stolen, but for me, it feels inevitable that AI is taking such a big space. How do you see using it and the future of using it, at least in this moment?
I make a third of the amount of money that I made in 2020 through voiceover, I think singularly because of AI.
Yeah.
So I have been impacted financially in a very, 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 very big way. It went from a very cushy full-time job to like a part-time job, which has been tough.
Yeah.
Now, this coincided with my accidentally starting a marketing agency on Broadway, so that's not. But I mean, I think that's like another reason, sorry to go back to it, but that's another reason why I just constantly am like, bringing on more streams of income, because you just have no idea. You have no idea what could happen. And like during the pandemic, theater was gone. My voiceover career soared. Theater came back. My voiceover career is like on life support, is fine.
Yeah.
You have, housing markets come and go. It's just like nothing is certain. I use it every single day. Claude is my preferred language learning model. Claude and I are besties.
I haven't tried Claude yet. I need to try it. It's on my list of things to do that are fun.
Love Claude. It's interesting. I posted something with meta AI backgrounds a few days ago, and someone responded and was like, hey, this is really irresponsible environmentally, which is, it's a tricky thing for my brain to reconcile, I guess, just because I just think of it as like beep boop computers and like don't think about, giant processors and what that actually does to impact the environment. So that's something that I like absolutely need to look more into. And also, I believe that you are correct that AI is inevitable. So I'm like, well, we just need to find more efficient ways and more environmentally healthy ways to do it, because it's not going anywhere. It's
no.
Go ahead.
And if we don't harness it now, especially as small businesses, you will be left in the dust by people who will. So it's sort of like this catch-22 of like, you have to use it and also somehow figure out how to use it in a way that feels morally less ambiguous, I guess, or more, I think it's a tricky thing I use it every single day. I wouldn't get half of the stuff done that I need to get done if I didn't use it. Like, there's no way I could have this podcast without AI. Like, it just, I wouldn't exist. Like, I use it for so many things, for editing, for, because I don't have a built-in team to do that. So it has become something I've depended on, but it also is one of those things of what is the limit of what I'm willing to do with it?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I use it for repurposing content from long form to short form video. I talk to Claude every single day. Sometimes I will straight up use Claude as a therapist, which I know is like questionable.
Oh yeah.
And Claude is has a very human response, which is really nice.
No, I started talking. So I've been using ChatGPT, and you can choose your voice. And I have this really lovely, cool British lady that I talk to. And I just feel like it's awesome. And like, I basically have her interviewing me.
Yes.
Like, because I have plans to write a book. And so it's like, oh, I'm cool. I just want to to talk to somebody, because you don't really have time, and I can do it in the car. I don't have to schedule time with somebody to like interview me. And so it's really like such a wonderful thing. And it is strangely empathetic. I'm like, that question was, I don't know where that came from, but that was really deep. That. It's very cool. If you haven't tried it, like but if you use it as a therapist, I mean, that's kind of like,
and where I'll be in sticky situations in work, and I will feel my emotions getting the better of me. And I'm like, well, who's going to be better than a computer to tell me if I'm, overstepping? So I will draft emails, or I'll say, this is the correspondence that has happened so far. Here is how I am feeling. Help me craft a thoughtful response. And then it's usually like a combination of, what that has, you cannot strictly rely on it, because people will tell from a mile away, but it is so helpful for me getting out of my own way. I'm also, as an entrepreneur, and also I have no marketing agency experience, and I'm running a marketing agency on Broadway. I am driving off a cliff every single day. I'm doing something new every single day. I'm pitching something new to someone. I'm pricing. I mean, there's just ceaseless. So I'm constantly drafting proposals and pitches and memos and all sorts of things via AI. So I use it every day.
Yeah. No, I can't really imagine my life at this point without it. It just feels like it's not. One thing we have in common, and we can talk about this or not talk about it if you want, is I think we both grew up in very conservative, evangelical faiths, which sometimes feel at odds with the world we live in and the industries in which we work. How has that been for you? I mean, I know it's a long years of therapy kind of question to ask. How have you been able to reconcile sort of an upbringing and, from what I understand, a family that didn't always accept you, to being so vulnerable and honest and sort of, I feel in many ways, just an empathetic person for people who are, maybe struggling with trying to be their true authentic selves?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how lovely and how vulnerable. It's hard. I mean, My mother and I have had a very big evolution. My mother is Episcopalian, but grew up Southern Baptist and still held on to some, it's hard to shake an upbringing. And
Yeah.
like there are some parts of that upbringing that were lovely. But she's undergone a massive evolution, as has our relationship. And I do think that she reached a point where she realized it was kind of a choice between a genuine relationship with her daughter or holding on to something that she was taught and without further examination. And we did a lot of work that took a really long time. I first came out to her in 2000. And she said, I wish you hadn't told me. And then I came out to her. We had maybe one or two brief conversations about it in the subsequent years. And then I tried to come out again when I was 30, and she did not handle it well. And I love her dearly, and she's better now. So we're not going to rehash the details of that event. And then the pandemic happened, and I basically, very long story short, pandemic happened through a string of events. I did end up going to Texas and living with my mom for 4 months and basically going through therapy with her and answering every single question about sexuality, about the state of the world, about whatever. And it was hard because it's hard to educate when you are hurt, and it's very hard to educate with a parent because I think we all,
Yeah.
I just want her to say, I'm proud of you every day. That's it. Like, I think that you don't ever outgrow wanting your parents to be proud of you, especially if you've held on to like queerness or any kind of otherness that you knew growing up wouldn't be accepted potentially by your own family. So that's turned into a really beautiful thing. I have a great relationship with my sister, but my extended family, I mean, I will see my mom's side of the family on occasion. It's sort of a don't ask, don't tell situation, even though I think they all know, maybe excluding my grandmother. I think she probably knows, but her sister was a queer human who, anyway, it was just like, we just like didn't talk about it, which is crazy. But my dad's side of the family, I am estranged from, and it's been devastating because I grew up very, 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 very close to them. It's probably more info than you wanted, but it's been so hard. So yeah, I mean, just any solace that I can. I love knowing that you're my ex-evangelical brethren. Any solace that I can offer. I know how painful it is, like soul deep pain that I will feel impacted by for the rest of my entire life. And any solace that I can offer, vulnerability I can offer, example I can offer, space I can offer, I want to, because it's so painful and so hard. So I just want to be a safe space for others.
I think that's great. I love that you are it's not just like you have a speech that you do about it, but it's interwoven in almost every episode. I feel like there's something that is, informed by your upbringing. And I think by acknowledging it and understanding it, I think sometimes when I tell people like friends stories, they're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like it's a different culture.
It's a different culture. And, I think by kind of by normalizing it in a way, I think it makes it easier to process, like, okay, I don't need to go back there. And also I am a product of that upbringing, and I can choose to do with it what I like and take the parts of it that work or don't work, or, but having a more, even if you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, having a little bit more of an empathetic view of like why, even if it's not your worldview at all.
Yes. So, and also it feels like a short form with new people. So like, I feel like I have a new degree of empathy, and I like want to give you a hug and be like, okay, we are kindred spirits truly. And like, I want to protect you. And
there's more in the culture thank you very much. That's very kind. There's more in the culture now. Like, I don't know if you watched the Shiny Happy People documentary.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, I grew up not Southern Baptist, but Independent Fundamental Baptist.
Oh my God.
So, and very, very well acquainted with Bill Gothard and growing up and going to all the seminars and things. And like, my family was not a Duggar family. Like I have one sister, but surrounded by people who very much were that. And like, I remember, like the show came on, I was like, I can't watch that. It's a little too close to home.
Oh my gosh. Tammy Faye. I was like, Billy Graham was a character, and my partner theoretically grew up Mormon, but not really practicing. And I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
But Billy Graham was a character, and I absolutely went to a Billy Graham revival in an arena growing up. And my partner was like, what? Like reconciling that, which from the show, which is, camp and who knows. But anyway, it's another universe.
Yeah. My grandfather was a pastor and was classmates with Jerry Falwell. Yep. So yeah. Yep. It's, it's a whole world. And I think there's more in the pop culture zeitgeist now that is going behind the scenes and kind of gives people little insight. But unless you've grown up in it, it's really hard to fully explain it. Actually, it was, speaking of Mormonism, it wasn't until I watched Big Love that I was like, oh, wow, this is, not besides the polygamy, is like exactly, it's the mindset. Like when you're trying to understand like what is the mindset behind a certain like evangelical point of view, I was like, this is the closest I've ever seen of something until that point that made me feel seen. I was like, oh, I get it. Like Big Love really like besides, and then it got, kind of crazy. I don't know if you watched it, but
I didn't.
But I really liked it. It was the closest thing I'd ever seen to how I grew up. Anyway, so thinking back on all of this, what is a piece of advice you might give to somebody, or even like younger Katharine, who is sort of on the verge of trying to explore something new or trying to figure it all out? What would you tell them? Like,
be kinder to yourself. Like, I think we've left in this, place where we've just talked about our upbringings. So certainly to little Katharine, be kinder to yourself and be easier on yourself. I was so hard on myself. And I just had this conversation with my mother this morning, but I was marveling. It's been a really challenging week at work. Lots of politics, lots of people, lots of heated, and no one's done any, it's just like personalities and what happens. And some of these situations, I would have responded so differently 10 years ago. It would have impacted my soul differently. I would have worn that stress differently. I would have taken it very personally, and I would have responded potentially more out of anger. And I am so proud of the way that I responded over the course of the last week. And I was sharing that with my mom. I was like, I feel like really like I'm a grown up, like I'm evolving. Like I feel really good about this. Like and I'm able to like, I did have a little cry about it yesterday, like let myself expel the stress that I had been feeling. And now I woke up and I was like, you handled that really well. And like, it's fine. And I just don't care as much about the things that probably ultimately that issue wasn't even about me, or it wasn't even about work, or wasn't even about whatever. And she was like, just wait until you're like nearing 70. You really don't give a shit about anything. And I was like, I can't wait. Because even just the evolution in the last 10 years has been divine. Like
well, I will tell you. So I think I have 10 years on you, and I really don't care.
It's heaven
anymore. It's so nice.
Oh my gosh. It's awesome. So to be kind to yourself, and like, if it's not important in 6 months, do not worry about it right now.
Yeah. That's really good advice. So what's one thing that you can share, if you can, thinking that this is coming out in 2 weeks, that you're really excited to be working on?
The series that I'm working on.
Oh, we haven't even talked about that. Good heavens.
We haven't even talked about it.
Oh, my word. Let's talk about it, because that's one of the reasons why I was like, I got to reach out to you. So you have launched this incredible Broadway, like mini Netflix thing, which is so ambitious. Like, so we've talked about all the things you do as a job, but now like we can talk about actually this whole project that you've done, where you've launched 5 shows and you have 35 episodes.
Yeah.
Of these coming out for season 1. You're already like in the works for season 2. So this is all under your brand and that showbiz.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is this thing that you're doing?
Yeah, it's just, I'm trying to build the content that I want to see about Broadway. And I'm very, very passionate about like the Bridgerton effect and, working in social media. Like, I do think that there is a huge underserved audience of Broadway fans. Actually, I literally just saw today, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a new Broadway social media network that's being created, which who knows to what degree of success. I hope it's hugely successful, but clearly other people are noting that this is a thing as well. Yeah, I just look at Reddit and how incredibly active it is, r/Broadway or r/musicals. And it's just like our Discords. And it's just such a ginormous fandom. Anyway, we have Broadway.com and Playbill and Theater Mania and these sites, legacy sites, which are fabulous and all evolving in their own right. And they do so many different things. You know, they're tickets, but they're also news and also media, and they're fabulous platforms. And I wanted to build a like digital first 2025 platform that is video only, and it's all free. It's all available on YouTube, and it's everything from 90-second short form women on the street interviews to 45-minute sit down conversations with actors, innovators, all the things. So yeah, we have 5 shows: Jessie Lynn on Broadway, Slime Tutorial, which is like a play on bootlegs and also shows performers video clips of themselves previously for clips they maybe have forgotten that they ever did. I'll drink to that with Melanie Sutrathada, Game Changers with me, and the next big thing, which is understudies and standbys on Broadway.
Very cool. So like what made you think in the middle of all that you had going on that, you know, producing 35 shows
was a good idea.
Was a good idea.
I had the dream for this 2 years ago. So I've had this dream longer than I planned on doing marketing on Broadway. I bought like a mic flag for And That's Showbiz before Gatsby was even a twinkle in my eye. So the dream for all of this preceded that. And then And That's Showbiz, I was like, well, I've already got the handle. So I guess that's what the platform that I'll put my business under. So that was sort of like, you know, whatever. But this is what I wanted it to ultimately be. And now it's both. The 35 of it all, honestly, is because behemoths, some of whom I have recently mentioned, I suspect maybe if what I'm doing is successful, they will probably try to emulate. And it's a lot easier to do that with a short runway if you only have one show than if you have a massive 35 episodes in a single season.
Right.
And so I wanted to, you know, have a complete something. So that's what we're doing. And then we're doing award season roundtables, which I'm really, really excited about.
Oh, cool.
A la Hollywood Reporter. So that's a lot of my March. That's next month, and April, I guess. And then some institutions that I mentioned previously are talking about, you know, partnering or commissioning, you know, sort of different, like almost docu-series about various theaters. Cool. And yeah, so it's really like, I think I'm going to yes and it and let it turn into whatever it wants to turn into. But I'm really excited. And it's done really well so far. We've got like, I don't know, 65,000 views in the last 2.5 weeks. And I've done no marketing spend and like not a substantial amount of even organic social media marketing. I've not been the best marketer for myself just because I straight up haven't had the capacity. And I have self-produced and directed all of these episodes by myself, and I'm marketing them all and distributing them all by myself. So it's just, you know, it's a lot.
It's a lot. No, that's a huge undertaking under the best circumstances. Like if that were your only job, that would be more than enough. And then to put it on top of all of the other things that you're doing is really impressive. I'm excited. You're going to have like your own, like bringing it back to Texas, like Magnolia network of like,
oh my gosh, the dream. Yeah, I love it. Listen, some behemoth someday, certainly they will want to purchase these, and then I'll make so much money, and then I can just produce Broadway shows that I want to see with the marketing that I want to do, and everything will thrive, and it'll be great.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in manifesting. So what is that one big dream that you're like, that's going to happen? That you want to put out there?
Oh, I mean, live streaming Broadway, probably.
Yeah.
And creating a sustainable model for it.
Right.
Not just doing it, but
figuring it out.
A system and negotiating that, like helping negotiate that contract, which will be the biggest pain of my life. If I have anything to do with it, that will be a nightmare. But I really want it to happen, or at least help the people. I know there are people very, 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 very close and very actively trying to make that happen. So helping those people in any way I can, or, you know, yeah, I just really want to, I really do want to innovate Broadway. I really do want to bring it into the digital age. I really do want to serve an underserved audience. I think those are the really big dreams. I have dream producing projects, but those are not as big as like that.
Tackling that would be incredible. And I have no doubt that you'll do it.
Oh, thank you. You're so lovely. You're so lovely.
Likewise. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me.
I feel like I could continue talking to you about many, many things, but I know that you are a busy woman and need to get on to other meetings in your life.
Yeah, but we're friends now. So
yeah.
I don't know. I have no plans to be in Houston, but hopefully I will. And if you're in New York, please let me know. We'll go see a show or something.
Oh, I would love that. I would love nothing better than that. Yeah,
this has been a delight. You're an amazing interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And there you have it, another episode of Inside the Design Studio in the books. If you enjoyed this exploration of life's design, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review. Your thoughts fuel our creative journey. I'm David Peck, your design companion on this adventure. Until next time, keep crafting a life that's as captivating as your favorite masterpiece.